Hi, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk tents, more specifically Moto tents. If you're familiar with my channel, then you know I've been a user of the REDVERZ tent for quite some time. Last year I used the REDVERZ Solo. Toward the end of the year I picked up the REDVERZ Atacama, and I have kept that as my go-to tent. Well, I just returned from a week in Arizona, and just before I left, I received the LoneRider Moto tent, and I used that for the week in Arizona. So I thought it'd be a great opportunity to compare these two tents head to head. So let's take a look. So the first thing I want to talk about is the stuff sacks. If you're, again, familiar with my channel, if you've seen my review on the REDVERZ Solo, I really kind of beat it up on the stuff sack. The opening was in the side and it didn't work for me. The Atacama, very different. Openings on the end, and it's not 100% waterproof. I didn't do a very good job growing up last time, but it's got a good, solid stuff sack. I would call it robust. It's got a couple of good cinch straps, so I'm okay with this. And again, just in a hurry the last time I rolled it up, so don't judge by the way it's in there this time. All right, so it's got a good stuff sack, so I'm okay with that. The LoneRider, maybe it's a little better of a stuff sack. It's truly waterproof. It has a closable end, so it is 100%, I think, waterproof. So it's just like a dry bag. It's got a couple ends. I used this for the week in Arizona to include 1,000 miles on the road there and 1,000 miles back. So it took some wind beating. Some of the little edges are frayed, so it got some use. It saw some dirt. It saw some muck. It's got a couple things that are fraying, but I think it did okay. It was strapped to one of my Moto bags, so I secured it just the way they did and the way they suggested. It took a little wear, but I think it's a good stuff sack. So maybe this one could be a little bit better. I don't know, but this one certainly is a good stuff sack. When you compare the two sizes of these stuff sacks and tents, they're about the same. I mean, you can really change it depending on how you roll it. So if you can roll it shorter, then it's going to be fatter. You can roll it longer, it's going to be thinner. So they're about the same. Weight is about the same. The big complaint with these things is how big they are. And I think most people are complaining because of this, not when you set it up. Sure, it's big when you set it up, but it truly doesn't take up any more room than when my friends set up their small tents. I just have to have my motorcycle strategically placed. So the footage that my tent and my motorcycle take up is the same room as my buddy's tent and their motorcycle. My motorcycle is just inside my tent. So yeah, you got to pay attention a little bit to where you go, but I've been through New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona. I've never had an issue where I couldn't find a spot big enough to put up my tent. So with that being said, I'm a Moto tent guy. Now just need to decide, is it REDVERZ or is it LoneRider? So stick around. All right, so first thing I want to say is this is how I've set these tents up every time I used them, and they both go up almost identically. The sleeves are color coded to match the poles, so you can't get that wrong. You see, this is black, red, and red. And every time I've ever used them, I've only used 4 stakes in both tents. 2 on the end here, 1 here, 1 here. And actually I got that in the wrong hole. It should be in that one. And same thing for this one. I should probably pull that a little different, but it's okay for the comparison. So there they are, side by side. And now let's take a look. It doesn't take much for you to understand that the REDVERZ is quite a bit bigger. Notably, the sleeping side is quite a bit bigger. So I'm gonna get them both opened up and then we're gonna take a look. So we'll start with this one. And again, I just spent a week in here. That's why it's dirty. It's got some pockets. Never used them, don't think I'd ever use them. It does have a hook right here for my flashlight. And I thought that was a big deal for me. This side door can be used with the canopy piece. So I thought that was a big deal. What I normally do is I put my bike in straight and then I'd leave the back open and I cooked right out the back side of my tent. So I want to show you that first. So I'm going to put the bike in here and then we'll talk about the sleeping side. The sleeping side in this one, much smaller than the Atacama. Again, I got another hook. Actually, I think I got 2 hooks for flashlights, but this did work well. So let me get the bike in here and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so understand that we've had a ton of rain here. The ground is super soft, so I got a rock to keep me up, but that's the GS inside here. When you put a full-size big GS like this one, it really inhibits going in and out of the tent. And I know that's why they made this door. I've never used that door. I've never used it on either one of my tents. This is a door I'm going to use. So what I started doing was putting the tent at an angle, and then I could easier get in and out to the tent. But if you look, my big GS barely fits. It really doesn't fit well, and I'm not quite touching. You can see right there's a tire, so it could come forward a little more, but it's small. So if you ride it in and angle the front tire over there and the back tire here, then you can enter through that door and it works a lot better. So just to put the bike in straight, my GS is a little too big, so keep that in mind. With a big GS, if you angle it and put the front end over there in that corner, it worked a lot better, and then it opened up the door to get in and out. So I think it was day 2 of my trip that I figured that out. But I like to cook right off here. I opted for the awning kit on my tents. So if it was raining, this would be pulled out, and I have a little bit of a patio, so to speak, to cover it. So yes, I do love the fact that this can also be used with the awning kit, because that's a big one. But again, if the GS is angled, there's not much room for you to hang out and live and do your thing in that one. So that's the first thing. It's big enough to use, but it's not overly big. They both have the same type of pre-hung tent concept. That part's fine either way. I did notice, I think I've already ripped this tent. The poles on this one, see a slice right there? The poles on the Moto tent only go in from one side. That does make it set up a little bit faster. You slide them in from this side, and there's like a leather pouch that catches the other end. So it sets up a tiny bit faster, but not enough to really worry about. So I'm gonna pull the GS out just so I can give you a demonstration of how big the sleeping area is, and it's just easier to do it without the bike in there. So let me pull that out. All right, for measuring purposes, to get the understanding, this cot is 75 inches long and 27 inches wide. So we'll put that inside so you get an understanding. So I slept in here, like I said, a week, and I still had room for my table, my other gear. I use a Helinox hardtop table to cook on when I primitive camp, and I just moved it and set it inside to keep it out. So plenty of room for gear. Couldn't get 2 of those cots in here, so it'd be tight, but it's really comfortable for 1 person. Really comfortable. Again, angling the motorcycle, big GS will fit, and everything worked well. So overall length of this one is right at 13 feet. Maybe 12.8, 12.9. And for width, right about 8 feet. So it's 13 by 8 is what I'm going to call it, and that's close enough. And I know that is 17 feet long, so 4 feet difference in length, and it's up to you to decide whether or not that 4 feet is worth to you or not. So let's move the stuff over. Let's check out the REDVERZ tent. So again, overall length, we could call it 201, so not quite 17 feet, but considerably longer and a little bit wider. I'll open that up and I'll measure it over there. Okay, measurement wise, it falls right in the 8 foot mark. Now, when you look at that, all right, again, that's 75 inches long, 27 inches wide. Tons of room for 2 of those big cots, right? It's got a hook down there for flashlight, which is big for me, and it's got one here. Now, I did a review on this tent and a solo, and actually the owner, Kevin, emailed me about my review. Said he appreciated the review, went on and on. There was a couple things that I complained about, so to speak, and that was the hook. There's no hook in here for a flashlight. And Kevin mentioned they didn't put one because it has all these hooks right here. So you could hang your flashlight from here. So that's on me. I should have done that. The next thing that I'll say is I don't understand why this mesh door is here. See, we have a mesh net liner, like a mosquito liner, right? I'm not sure what the purpose is. And before you say mosquitoes, remember, this is wide open. So mosquitoes don't go that low. What's the real purpose of that? I don't know. It doesn't hurt me. It's a J door, as they call it. So the awning kit won't work with it, but the awning kit actually is for this, and it works for both tents. You will notice I have the ground sheet in here on this one. I do have the ground sheet for my other tent, and since we're talking about them, I'll tell you that the setup for the ground sheet in this tent is far superior than the setup for the one on the LoneRider. This has little clips, so you can just clip them and take them out, clip them, put them back in. The REDVERZ, or I'm sorry, the LoneRider tent has these plastic hooks, and it kept coming off, so I zip tied them, as you can see right there, right? So I don't want the ground sheets coming off. So I don't know if that's a fault, but I like the ground sheet situation on the REDVERZ tent much better. And before I stick my bike in here, you got to know this is considerably larger than that one. So let's get this ready. Okay, GS is in there, and as you can tell, front tire's touching, and it's kind of like the same thing. I mean, it barely fits, but it does fit. But what I want you to understand is, look at all that room. I mean, there's a lot room in here. When I had the solo tent, I used to sit here in the morning and have coffee because the sleeping side was so small. Now if you look at that, now I have room over there. So there's a bunch of extra space in this tent that maybe the LoneRider doesn't have. But I think they're both very quality tents. They both pack down about the same size. There's not much difference in them. I like the way the ground sheet connects in that one versus that one. That one's a little smaller, sets up a tad bit faster. Now keep in mind, I just did a week in the LoneRider. Never used a guy line. Never used a guy line. All last year in my REDVERZ Solo, never used a guy line. So 4 stakes in the ground and your tent's up. If it's inclement weather, you've got it. So 17 feet long, 13.8. So 4 foot difference in length. They're both about the same width, and they both pack up about the same. They both take the same amount of time to set up. They're both about the same money. So REDVERZ is a company out of Colorado. The owner will text you back, or his wife, one of them will text you back if you have a question, comment. LoneRider is a UK company, so I don't have a problem with either one. So do you like green? Do you like brown and red? LoneRider does their red thing because it offsets your items and thinks it's easier to find something. I don't know. I'm okay with color. I don't care. I don't use these doors here, so, or that door. I don't use any of those. I go in and out of here. I don't want to crouch down. I'm going to stand up. So that's my deal. If this door had the ability to use the awning kit, I think hands down this would be the tent for me. I love the fact that that big wide side door can be used as my awning kit. So I could back my bike in right here, have my top box open, because that's where I keep my cooking and camping stuff, and I'd be able to cook and camp right out of that. So I like that. This is perfect for 1, and that's a little better for 2. All right, so I think I've covered everything I think I wanted to cover. See the difference between the REDVERZ Atacama and the LoneRider Moto tent. They're both about the same in price. They both set up about the same, store about the same. It's just, do you want really, really large living and garage space, or are you okay with a smaller version? So again, hope you got something out of this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe and keep an eye out for the next video. Thanks, have a great day, be safe.